Hello and welcome to Odds on Premier League Matchday 12. We are back to analyze this surprising Premier League with Liverpool 5 points ahead of Man City. Keep losing Guardiola's men, Tom. What a surprise.
Yeah, and it gives us something, right? I mean, look, the Premier League needs a new winner every year. That's something I believe. Not everyone has to believe that, but I want to see a new winner every year. I think it makes it interesting. It's the one thing this league is missing, is a new champion, a rotating champion, multiple teams who can win the league. So maybe we're all team balled now. I don't know.
Well, it's going to be a great match day because City are facing Tottenham, for instance. So, guys, stay with us, of course. Press the like, subscribe. Let's go on now with the show. And we start with a great game. Leicester City-Chelsea is the first game. We have within 1 point, we are from Chelsea, third, to Aston Villa, ninth. So everything is really packed for the Champions League. And there we have Chelsea doing a good season, I would say, especially after what we saw in recent years. Positive draw against Arsenal. They also drew at Old Trafford, so they want to go back to the winning path, Tom. Against Leicester, they are 3 points away from the bottom three, and it's only 1 point in the last 3 games.
Yeah, and they've struggled since coming up to the Premier League. They've struggled certainly at home, and if you're going to stay in the league, you're going to have a good season, you've got to win home games, and so far at the King Power this season, Leicester City have picked up 1 victory, and that was in their last game but one. There's been some really poor performances in these home games as well. They were very poor in the loss against Nottingham Forest. They struggled for long spells against Aston Villa. I thought the draw against Everton at home is a must-win game for everyone, certainly teams that are down there, and they struggled in that one. So, look, I can see why Steve Cooper is getting a bit of criticism right now, but if you are coming from Championship to Premier League, you start so far back from even the established mid-table Premier League clubs like Crystal Palace or Fulham or whatever. So it's a huge task to try and stay in the Premier League for Leicester. I think of the promoted teams, they've got the best chance. The issue in this game is at both ends, really. Defensively been okay at home this season, but we know Chelsea's attack, which we'll get to in a minute, is potent, to say the least. And offensively, we're waiting for confirmed team news, but there's doubts about 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝐻𝐿, who's been really good since coming in from Crystal Palace. There's doubts about Jamie Vardy, whose old legs have carried Leicester in these opening few weeks of the season. There's doubts about Patson Daka. There's doubts about 𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗀, who's been great at moments this season. So you lose that group. I don't think you have much chance in this game. So we'll see what Leicester can put together, but it's going to be low block, hold on, hit on the break. And if you've got Jamie Vardy and you've got 𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗀, you've got a chance. In terms of Chelsea, look, what a season, right? At this point, I think it's fair to say that they are meeting expectation as opposed to exceeding expectation, right? You spend that sort of money, you have this kind of squad, you have a generational talent like Cole Palmer playing as well as he has been. You expect them to be not in the title race, sure, but in the top 4, about where they are. And that's credit to the former Leicester manager now in charge of Chelsea, Enzo Maresca, because we were all looking forward to dunking on Chelsea. And we've been doing it for a long time now because of the bizarre nature of the kind of billionaire's plaything that they have become since Abramovich was brought out by the group that's currently in charge. But look, on the field, there are so many players that have been in really terrific form, from Nicholas Jackson to Cole Palmer. I think Romeo Lavia is going to be missing for this one, which means Enzo Fernandez has to come back in, and that's a shame because the balance of Caicedo and Lavia has made Chelsea look a lot better. Said it before and I'll say it again, Enzo Fernandez is a great player, not in this league. And I think that a move away for him and a replacement in the squad with someone who can get up and down a bit more is going to be the next big thing Chelsea need to do. So him coming into this game, weirdly, might give Leicester a bit of an advantage in central midfield if they can win that battle. You know, Wilfred Ndidi has been great this season for Leicester. But look, I think you go Chelsea win, considering how bad the home form has been for Leicester, plus Chelsea away from home. They've won 3 of their 5, but one big, was it 5 or 6 at Wolves? I forget now. 3 at West Ham, certainly. But 12 goals scored all season. 6-2, thank you, 2-6. So loads of goals scored this season. My notes just failed me there at the wrong moment. But loads of goals, right? Essentially 3 victories in 5. You got to back them to win. And because of that, Leicester struggling, Chelsea scoring and winning. Chelsea in over 3.5 goals in this match, which includes Leicester goals, and I'd fancy them for 1, is 3. Double your money. Quite like that. Minus 1.5 handicap is 2.38. The bookies agree with me that Chelsea are going to win this and scoring a few. And then again, I do this most weeks because it comes off most weeks. Look at Palmer, look at Jackson. Jackson to score and Chelsea win, doubles your money. Palmer to score or assist and Chelsea win, doubles your money. So that's 4 double your money bets, but go Chelsea.
Well, and also away from home, they are the 3rd best team, 10 points in 5 games, 12 goals scored. As you say, they are not a joke anymore. Last season, we were laughing at them, and now we just make jokes about some random signings, but on the pitch, they are back to fight for the Champions League. We want to see them again in the Champions League. Well, next game is a tough one and a really good one. Arsenal, Nottingham Forest, so 4th against the 5th, and some doubts around Arteta's men. They are winless in the last 4, 2 draws and 2 defeats. Remember, of course, they drew against Chelsea, and the last home game was a draw against Liverpool. The schedule was tough. But Tom, when you are in such a position, I guess you don't want Nottingham Forest playing away. Remember, they are one of the best away teams of the season. They were even able to win at Anfield. So we have great odds to back somehow Nottingham Forest if we want to see Arsenal struggling here.
Yeah, look, I think in terms of form and in terms of the way they deliver a performance, Nottingham Forest at 9, 8-1, there or thereabouts, is really, really attractive. Of course, Arsenal are favourites, and the probability suggests that Arsenal are going to win. I think in all scenarios, this game is going to be quite tight. But if you're looking at Nottingham Forest as a surprise bet this weekend, 5 away games, 3 victories, 2 draws, no defeats. They've won at Anfield. They won impressively at the 𝐾𝐿 Stadium. They were really good against Chelsea a couple of weeks ago in the draw at Stamford Bridge. Probably could have won that game. So I might just take a flutter on that. I wouldn't suggest it's definitely going to come in, but the way Forest play, it's so basic, feels like a criticism, but it's not a criticism. It's like what David Moyes has always done. It's what Nuno did when he was at Wolverhampton Wanderers last time. You've got 4 defenders, the fullbacks overlap. You've got 2 defensive midfielders who get stuck in and win the ball back. Ryan Yates will boot you off the field if he has to. Then you have players who can rotate with 𝗪𝗏𝗏 and 𝗵𝗵𝗏𝗏 and Elanga and all these other players who can buzz around. And of course, Chris Wood's form is exceptional. You know, he has been the reason, really, that Forest haven't just had a good season, they've had a great season to this point. It's 8 goals in the Premier League so far this season for Chris Wood. So certainly don't sleep on Chris Wood scoring if Forest are to win. So really impressed with them. In terms of Arsenal, look, they still are having a good campaign. They are not setting the world alight. They are not, at the moment, keeping pace with Liverpool and even Man City still at the top. But at home, it's 6 games, it's 5 wins, it's just the 1 defeat. And that was the surprise one a few weeks ago. So, look, I think you're looking at who is fit for Arsenal. Ben White is out. Raheem Sterling should come back, but we're not sure. Declan Rice should come back, but we're not sure. Bukayo Saka is always injured. But we don't know about Bukayo Saka, how fit he's going to be if he's back. We know Calafiori is out, and Calafiori, who was just having a real impact in that left-back spot, really, really important. He's out, and we don't know about Leandro Trossard as well. So they're light, and they need people who have not played well for some time to come to the fore. We got a bit of that away at Chelsea with Martinelli, who struggled this season. We need more from 𝗵𝗵𝗏𝗏 𝐽𝒍𝒻, who's offered basically nothing for the best part of a year for Arsenal, injured or out of form. So he needs to step up a bit. Thomas Partey needs to continue his resurgence and rejuvenation in central midfield. And the back line needs to get their act together again because they're conceding more goals than we expected, than we're used to seeing with Arsenal. So to correct that home form, it's 3 wins and 5. But like, it's tricky. I think you look at tight Arsenal victory here. It's without a win in 5. It's 2 draws in the last 4. And the home games they've played in that time, it's only 1. And that was the game against Liverpool, which they drew. So it'd be tough to bet against them. I don't discount the draw at 5. I don't discount the Forest win at 9. But Arsenal to win on the under score lines here. Nicking a narrow victory. A group bet of 1-0, 2-0 or 2-1 brings you in at 2.5. I'd certainly look at maybe the under 2.5 market for Arsenal here if you're not confident on 1-0 or 2-0 or any of the kind of group score lines. Slightly better odds because you lose 2-1 from your odds there. And again, with Arsenal, they've stopped scoring corners, but if they are to succeed, you've got to look at that market again. Over 8 corners and 𝗵𝗵𝗄 to score from a header. That's 𝗏, not Martinelli, the centre-half. That's around 9, but that fluctuates as you get towards the game.
Well, another option I want to flag, for instance, is the Asian Handicap Plus 1.5 for Nottingham Forest. This is 1.82. Great odds, and you win your bet even if Arsenal win by 1 goal margin, as you said, with your group bets. Next game is Aston Villa Crystal Palace. 4 consecutive defeats for Aston Villa in all competitions, away from home at Anfield, at Tottenham ground. So now they have a tough schedule. Juventus and Chelsea are next. They must win and beat Crystal Palace, bottom 3, and it was a painful defeat, the last one against Fulham.
Yeah, absolutely. Both teams having a tough time this season. I think with Aston Villa, the issue is, the Champions League, obviously on top of what they were doing before in the Premier League and the Conference League. It's significantly tougher. They can't really rotate very much. The squad is not particularly deep. When that happens, what you need is a bit of luck with injuries. And going into this game, Amadou Onana is missing. Ross Barkley, who's a cover player, but he's missing. Matty Cash has been perennially injured. Boubacar Kamara is out. Pau Torres, who's their best defender, is missing. Ezri Konsa is struggling. Ian Maatsen is struggling. Jacob Ramsey, who's a rotation player, is out. So that's really concerning for Aston Villa because their first team is great. Their second string's all right. But if someone's off form, there is no cover. And the games are coming thick and fast, and they're really tough games. John McGinn is fantastic. It's great to see him playing as well as he has for Villa and for Scotland in midweek. New contract for Morgan Rogers, who is an outstanding player, and he's getting better and better and better with every passing week. The way he just runs with the ball and people bounce off him is tremendous. Ollie Watkins is scoring and assisting again. John Duran's dried up a bit. But with Duran drying up, Watkins has come back again. So the issue is, what is the backline going to be? And are they going to be able to have a coherency to them to stop Crystal Palace attacking? That's how they win this game. They are better offensively. They are the home team. There's every chance Villa can get this game won early and cruise it out, because it's so difficult to assess Crystal Palace because Oliver Glasner is playing the exact same way he did last season when he came in and they went on that amazing run. The trouble is they've lost 𝗏𝗍. They're not getting the goals from Mateta. Eza is perennially injured. We don't know yet whether he'll be back for this one. There's hope he will be. Eddie 𝗍𝗏 has come in, wants to be the striker, shunted out to the wing. He's offered absolutely nothing in that position because he's not a winger. They keep losing Adam Wharton in midfield. I think he's going to be missing for this one as well. They keep losing 𝗐𝗏𝗏 in midfield, likely missing for this one. Kamada suspended for that terrible challenge in the last game. So loads of issues, loads of problems. And I think with 𝗐𝗏𝗏 at the back, they look better, but I still think they are just player for player, nowhere near even what Villa will be able to put out here with a set of injured players. So certainly wouldn't back Crystal Palace on their away form, certainly wouldn't back them on their form across the season. No wins away from home and just 5 goals scored. No good. Take Villa. Again, I like the group bet here at 1-0, 2-0 and 2-1, 2.88. It just brings a favourite in to double your money more often than not, a bet like that. And those are the most common score lines in football, so always like that. I would look at the under 3.5, and Villa is 2.38. I'd still prefer the group bet personally. And Ollie Watkins to score or assist. He has great numbers in both, normally gets double figures for both. If Villa are to win, Watkins will be a significant part of it. So put him in the mix. With a Villa win, you'll make some money.
Well, next 2 games are very difficult to predict, and the odds are very high. Bournemouth, Brighton, really interesting game. This one with Brighton doing, again, a great season, very close to the European spots. Beat Man City, huge surprise, even coming back even more surprised. But away, remember, they were this close to get points from Anfield and Bournemouth, a team that was able to beat Man City and Arsenal at home in recent times. Tom, this is very tough to go for 1x or 2.
Yeah, it is. And I think these are two of the teams that show that really good coaching and belief in the system and all of that can see average players perform better than we expect, right? There are some clubs that will spend £100 million, but the coach cannot get anything out of them. There are others that have got no money, but they pick the right players for the right system. Individual players improve. And in terms of Bournemouth, you know, the improvement in 𝐬𝐭𝐴 and Ryan Christie and 𝗵𝐼 and 𝐬𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐵𝗵𝗍 and 𝗵𝐿𝐴 and even 𝐸𝐴 from the first few weeks of the season. Like, I could go on with all their players, but they have all improved under Andoni Iraola. Not to say they weren't improving under Gary O'Neill as well. Previously, I think that these are players that are clearly able to listen and learn and develop and deliver and execute. And that is the difference between Bournemouth and a lot of other teams that were looking at Bournemouth thinking, why aren't we doing that? What's happening here? And I know people will say Evanilson was £40 million. That's the entirety of the Solanke money that's gone on that player. It's not like they splashed that cash from some great reserve from an owner or whatever. It's smart business is what they did, and it's paying off for them. It's risky, but it's paid off. And their form has been fantastic. You mentioned the win over Manchester City, but it's one defeat in their 5 home games. It's 3 victories in a row. They've also beaten Arsenal. They've also beaten Southampton in that run, played well and drew against Newcastle. So really lots of positives for Bournemouth. In terms of injuries as well, it's worth noting Tyler Adams is back. They lost Alex Scott, but Tyler Adams probably going to be their best central midfielder if he can stay fit consistently. But that, of course, is the big if when it comes to Tyler Adams. In terms of Brighton and Hove Albion, they always seem to have 10 injuries at any given time. There's doubts about 𝐿𝐿 Minte. There's doubts about Lewis Dunk in this game. Still no Solly March. He was so good for them a year and a half ago. Adam Webster likely missing. Tariq Lamptey's always injured. Carlos Baleba has been fantastic. Doubts about him. But the thing is, if Carlos Baleba, who's been fantastic in recent weeks, is injured, doesn't matter. They just bring someone else in and they play just as well and they deliver exactly whatever manager is in charge at the moment, 𝗪𝗛𝗏, has asked of them. And that's just unbelievable with Brighton and Hove Albion. They have off days, but they have more good days than bad. And they've won 2 of their 5 away games so far this season, though it's worth noting that in the last couple of away games, they have had really tough ones. Away at Chelsea and away at Liverpool, I think was the other away game recently, big team. So how's it going to go? Toughest game of the weekend to pick for me. I think all results look likely. I don't discount the draw at 3.6. That'll rise, I think, before we get to the game kicking off because late flutterers tend to pick a winner. I would just shade for Bournemouth here, considering they're the home team and they've got such brilliant home wins this season. An end-to-end game sort of favours them with Evanilson and 𝗪𝗎𝗪 and the counter-attacking potential they have. Bournemouth and both teams to score 3.75. I found that to be quite high, so I'd absolutely take that. And then look at scorers here. For Brighton, you look at Danny Welbeck, but for Bournemouth, who I think are going to win, look at Evanilson. Great scoring run he's on at the moment. Bournemouth win, Evanilson score. Again, W money.
Great game. This one tough to predict, as we can see in the odds, and the same for the next one. Perhaps less interesting for the neutral fan, but still for betting you can make good money. Everton Brentford, I'm referring to at Goodison Park. Everton to win is 2.5, and Brentford struggle when they are away from home. Imagine if they struggle, that they've got 0 points. It's true that Everton, they are not the best team in the world, but they are getting better. Only 1 defeat in the last 5 games, and it was in Southampton, and they were extremely unlucky. And another pattern that Everton is following, Tom, is the under. We don't see goals in their games. The last 5 games were under, including the goalless draw against West Ham.
Yeah, look, I don't think this game's going to be particularly watchable or any more enjoyable than that game at West Ham a couple of weeks ago. Even though Brentford have been great at home, you mentioned it, away from home they've been really, really poor. And even though, you know, at home they've been scoring lots of goals and been entertaining, they aren't a particularly aesthetically pleasing team. They do the basics well and they'll win on those metrics. But away from home, it's 5 defeats in 5. It's 11 goals conceded. You couldn't bet on any team with that run. I wouldn't recommend on it. It might come in, but it'd be very surprising if it did. Plus, you're wasting your money more often than not. Like in terms of Everton, it's tough, right? It's tough to watch. I think Everton fans didn't expect much, and they're not getting much. If Branthwaite is fit, and that's been a continuing endless issue with them, they look better defensively with 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗀 and Branthwaite. I think the midfield continually changing. I'd probably settle on Mangala and 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗀 if it were me, but they've tried 𝐸𝐵𝐵𝗏𝗏 and 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗀 in their central midfield positions. That's what I would do, but we'll see what Sean Dyche settles on. I think he wants to keep rotating. And 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏 great to see him fit and all that, but I speak to Everton fans and they've really had enough of 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗀. Like, he just doesn't score goals, doesn't really do enough in games, and he's just a kind of one-dimensional battering ram. And I think maybe some would like to see Beto given more of a chance, because he came in as a kind of one-dimensional battering ram, and there's potential there for growth that we're not seeing in 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗀. So it's an interesting dynamic there. I think it will be 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 with Beto coming on for the final 10, whatever's happening. And in terms of Brentford, I mean, look, they're going to do exactly what they do every single week. There'll be a hard-working midfield in Vitaly Yarnil and someone like Damsgaard in midfield. There'll be 𝗵𝗵𝗏 and 𝐸𝐿, who are underrated and particularly impressive players. They're effective players. And I would imagine it'll be Land of the Giants across the back line if Pinnock is fit, with Christopher 𝐸𝐿 and all of that. So, look, I think a game of low chances. I think a game of few shots. I would personally just pick for Everton. It's a straight up and down victory because of how poor Brentford's away form has been. Look at the corner market here. Two teams that love to score from corners and win corners. That is 90% of Everton's tactics. Over 10 corners in the match. Look at over 10 just for Everton as well, which is slightly more risky, but brings you in a decent return. Don't discount the draw at 3.4, but Everton win. Again, looking at group bets again, I think it's going to be a narrow week in a lot of games. 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, 3.5 for Everton to win that. But look at corners, look at low shots, look at low scoring, and just squeak for Everton.
It's going to be a tough week. Next one should be easier. At Craven Cottage, Fulham Wolves. Finally, first win of the season for Wolverhampton. We haven't said it, but now every team in the Premier League had won at least one game. Wolves against Southampton. We expected that. You picked that actually as your tip, and also Ipswich beat Tottenham. So they are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, but Fulham are doing a great season. They are very close to the European spots. They won the last two games, Crystal Palace and Brentford. Therefore, they are favorites. Tom, 1.7 to win.
Yeah, and they have to be, because they've been so good at home this season. Even the way they turn around that last game against Brentford, 1-0 down in the 93rd minute or whatever it was, and going on to win from that point. 3 victories in 5, pretty decent. 2 victories in their last 3. Hard-fought victories as well. Like, when teams go on a run where it's like, oh, they've won 3 in a row, 5 in a row at home, you then go at the fixtures, and it's always like, oh, it was Forest and Leicester and West Ham and Bournemouth and Ipswich or whatever. But that's not been the case with Fulham. You know, the Brentford game for them is a massive derby, and you could tell that with the way they enjoyed winning it. Yes, they lost against Aston Villa, but a tough game. The draw against West Ham was tough. The win against Leicester was tough. I think they've got a way of just shading games. There are individual players. It was Raul Jimenez and 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏 Traoré for the first weeks of the season. It's now Harry Wilson and Emile Smith-Rowe. There are players that are just having little purple patches for Fulham, and you add that to a really well-organised team. You add that to a sense of belief in what they're trying to do. That's given space for individuals to excel. And that's what's got Fulham to where they are. Belief in the system, belief in the manager, and players actually delivering on what they're contracted to do. It's rare in the Premier League, I know, but they're doing it. You know, Fulham can be a bit of a easy ride for players. You know, it's they'll probably be all right. You get a decent wage. No one's really looking at you. If it doesn't go well for Fulham, they're not going to be rioting in the streets. They're not chucking hummus and cucumber at you from the stands. You know, so it's a good club to play for, and you'll be a millionaire. So you don't have to be the most hard-working player to play for Fulham. But if you are, as this group are, under this manager, there are results to be had. In terms of Wolves, I did fancy them to win the last game, and they did. I don't fancy them to win this one. I still think there's a lot of issues there, including that the back line is really weak. You know, Craig Dawson looks over the hill. Sad to say, because I love Craig Dawson. Totti, I don't think is particularly good. Both Jose Sarr and Sam Johnston, depending on who plays in goal, have got a rick in them. The midfield balance looks off. They're not getting it right with whatever combination they're playing in there at the moment. And I think that beyond maybe Pablo Sarabia, there's no one that's really looked like alive and alert across the front line the last 2 or 3 games. I think they're clearly missing the influence of the quality of player they have sold in Pedro Neto and Daniel Podence over the years that have had big impacts. We mentioned Jimenez and Traore already. There's just a lot missing with Wolves. And I think they're going to need to really just dig in, try and get to 15 points at Christmas and see where they can go from there. So on the form, look at a Fulham win. And a Fulham win with a minus 1.5 handicap is 2.88. That's 2-0 or more. I quite fancy that. They've scored a few goals at home this season. Fulham above a goal a game. It's like 9 in 5, so it's nearly 2 goals per game, just under on average. Quite like that. Then look at individual players. I think you look at Emile Smith-Rowe and Harry Wilson, the 2 players in form. Pick either of those to score or assist, plus a Fulham win. There's money to be made there, but avoid Wolves.
And the next game and last one on Saturday is a great one. Man City, Tottenham, 4 consecutive defeats for Man City, the first time in Guardiola's career. Apparently, he's going to extend his contract. Therefore, Man City are not going to be punished, probably. But let's see what happens. And now they are facing Spurs. That is probably the team that got more wins or draws against Man City in recent years. I was checking the head-to-head on Oddspedia. Tom, last 7 years, 9 wins for City and 7 for Tottenham, including this season, League Cup. And last season, we saw a 3-3 at the Etihad. But these Tottenham are showing a lot of problems, especially when they are traveling.
I mean, there's 2 things on the form that I think could be a misleading thing coming into this game. Number one, international break has made a big difference because the run was getting to everyone. There was injuries, there was crises, there was complaints. All that was going on with Manchester City. And the other thing is that they were all away games they were struggling in. And at home this season, they've won 4 of 5. They've scored 12 goals. And they look fantastic. And even when they've just kind of scraped victories like against Southampton, they were never really troubled in that game. So if this game was at Tottenham, as the cup game was, I'd sort of think, yeah, okay, could be something in this. But the fact it's at the Etihad, it kind of makes me want to avoid that outcome. And it's worth noting too, it's only 2 league defeats in that run. Of course, 1 in the Champions League and 1 in the cup against Tottenham. So it doesn't really, and it makes it more interesting, but it doesn't necessarily make it seem like, oh, City are no longer favourites. I'd still make them favourites to win the league, even though, you know, Rodri is missing for the rest of the campaign. But that has had an impact, no doubt about it. And they've also lost people like 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐺 in recent weeks and ACCA in recent weeks. And Jack Grealish has barely played this season. Kevin De Bruyne has barely played this season. They haven't been able to get their best team on the field together. And if it wasn't for Erling Haaland and 𝐿𝐴𝐺𝐵𝗄, you know, maybe they would really be struggling. But they have had a couple of players who have excelled in every single game and they've scored goals at vital moments. And that's made a big difference. In terms of Tottenham, their home form has been tremendous and they've battered a few teams. But away, really poor. Like really, really poor. I think it's just 1 victory in 5. It's 3 defeats, some pretty poor ones as well. The Brighton loss, the Crystal Palace loss, which may be worse because at least against Brighton, they had that amazing first half. The whole game against Crystal Palace was incredibly flat and incredibly poor. I think that, you know, with Ange Postecoglou's way of playing, the form you mentioned, a lot of those wins came under Nuno and came under Conte, and they played a very specific way. He isn't going to do that, Postecoglou. He doesn't low block. He ain't going to low block. He's not going to set up to low block, and that can deliver great results against Man City B in the Carabao Cup. Can it deliver a result at the Etihad Stadium? It's certainly not something I put my money on. No Mickey van der Ven is huge for the way they play. We don't know if Romero is going to be fit. I think he is going to be, but, you know, we don't know that at this moment in time. To not have that pairing, and specifically Van der Ven, trying to play a high line at times against Man City, it's going to be suicidal and it's going to cost them in the end. I do think Tottenham will score because they have so many scoring potential players in Solanke and Kulusevski's been great recently, and Son's had a couple of decent games if he's fit and able to play. So City and both teams to score at 2.5 stands out at me. I'd absolutely look at that. City and over 2.5 goals is 1.91. Not amazing, but how much confidence do you have in Man City right now? Look, Tottenham win at 5.5. It might be worth a flutter, but again, for the reasons laid out, I think City are big favourites to win this game. And if that's the case, you look at Haaland to score and City to win. Again, that brings you double your money. But closer than we expect, but I think City win.
It's about time for Man City to win again, and probably when they are back on the winning track, they are gonna win big. We don't see these high odds for Man City to win at home. 1.5 is great. 2 games on Sunday. Southampton, Liverpool 5 points away from Man City. What a season for Liverpool, beating Aston Villa 2-0. They won the last 3 home games, and they are traveling to the poorest team in the Premier League. Their only win was against Everton, and they were extremely lucky to win that game 1-0. So Liverpool shouldn't suffer in the south of England, Tom.
No chance. Look, Southampton, really briefly, I think that they are a squad that just aren't up to playing in the Premier League. And sacking the manager Russell Martin, which is, an ongoing discussion with any team that are struggling, would be a waste of time, because no manager would be able to get this squad the required amount of points and wins to stay in the Premier League. That's just the reality of it. There's no miracle man that's going to come in and change things for Southampton. Not to say they're bad players, not to say they're not going to have good careers. I'm not trying to be too critical here, but like Cameron Archer, Armstrong, Flynn Downs, Lallana, who's like 70 years old, Jan Bednarek, Jack Stevens, no, I'm sorry, they aren't going to cut it. They aren't going to make it. They might get 8 wins, but 8 wins isn't going to be enough, and they certainly aren't going to win this game. Liverpool, best away team in the league. Mo Salah has been outstanding this campaign. Kelleher's come in for Alisson. You wouldn't have noticed it. Jota's got injured, but that's meant Darwin Núñez has come in, and he's looked focused and impressive, but also, characteristically erratic at times as well. So he's good to watch. Gravenberch's been great. Curtis Jones having a real purple patch of form, which he took into the England games a couple of weeks ago. So look, everything looks right for Liverpool. You can only see a Liverpool victory here. The only question really is how much they win it by. Across the season, they've scored 21 goals in their 11 games. Away from home, it's 10 goals in 5. So they're averaging 2 goals a game. I'd expect at least 2 goals in this game. No great money on that. So be a bit daring. Make it minus 2.5. That's a double your money bet. Liverpool to score 4 or more is 3.75 on its own. So forget the scoreline. Just look at the goals. I quite fancy that. I think that's the first thing I can really find here for a big Liverpool win, making you some money. I know you might say Southampton have had a decent home defensive record. They've only conceded 8, but that's still averaging about 1.7 per game. With Liverpool scoring record, with Salah, with Núñez, with all these things I've mentioned, go for a big Liverpool win. And Salah and Liverpool is also double your money, which just feels like it's a guarantee at the moment, the way he's playing.
Liverpool, Real Madrid next week. I'm afraid, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be, too afraid. It's humbling to lose every now and then. You're going to enjoy it.
Yeah, again, it will be the 3rd defeat in the Champions League, but let's see what happens at Anfield next week. Next game also on Sunday is Man United. First game for Ruben Amorim. Maybe they are now going to miss Ruud van Nistelrooy. He delivered great results, 3-0 against Leicester City. Away from home is only 1 win for Man United, so it's about time to win again with the new manager. All the eyes, of course, on him. A massive win for Ipswich, Tom. No one could have seen that coming against Tottenham. 2-1. Man United to win is 1.7. Actually, it's not bad at all.
No, look, what an incredible win for Ipswich Town. It's, no one saw that coming, least of all me. I thought that was a guaranteed Tottenham victory. So for them to go to Tottenham and win it upset everyone, right, in the last couple of last round. No one saw it coming, least of all Ipswich, but they got everything right on the day. The midfield was fantastic. They took their chances when they came. Again, Delap and Smodic were fantastic. Leif Davis was great at fullback, who also scored that amazing goal against Leicester in their last home game. Muric made some great saves, who's not a goalkeeper I rate particularly highly. So, great credit to them. And, they're still going down, but they've had a great moment, at least, in the season, and they deserve a lot of credit for that. In terms of Manchester United, actually, I'll just mention the Ipswich home form is 5 games, no wins, 3 draws, 2 defeats, right? So you can see where I'm going here. Even though it's 3 draws in their last 5, I'm not going to back Ipswich to win. In terms of Man United, it's the team everyone wants to watch this weekend because has Ruben Amorim been able to, in this international break, instill what he wants from this squad? You know, we've all been watching a few sporting games last couple of weeks. We know the formation, we know the setup, he knows what he wants from people. There's a story doing the rounds that he's going to make Marcus Rashford the striker because Rasmus Højlund is just not cutting it, and Joshua 𝗀𝗏𝗀 looks like he needs a loan to the Championship, never mind being up front for Manchester United. So it's going to be a new formation, it's going to be a new style. It's going to be perhaps a rejuvenation of someone like Bruno Fernandes, who, though getting good numbers, hasn't really dominated a match for a long time. 𝐿𝐵𝗵 being out is a shame, because I think he's going to be really important for what Amorim is going to be able to achieve. There's doubts about Lisandro Martinez as well. We'll see if he's able to play, as that'll be a shame to not have him in this first game in charge. He's going to be a crucial cog, a football playing, narky centre-half in a defensive three. It's kind of what Amorim is going to want. But look, even if Erik ten Hag was in charge, I'd still go for Manchester United here, mainly because Ipswich at home have not won a game, and the quality golf is going to be monumental. But because Amorim is in, and because there's been a positivity about Ruud van Nistelrooy, United in over 3.5 goals in this match at 3.5. That's really, really interesting, because 8 goals conceded at home for Ipswich again is not amazing, considering they've not really played many teams beyond Liverpool in the opening weekend of much worth. Plus, Man United, for all their issues, I know away from home it's a goal a game, but they have actually been scoring in the last couple of games, which was a big issue the first 6 weeks of the season. Under Van Nistelrooy, there was a kind of loosening of the attacking players. And so I think with a new manager to impress, with confidence of recent wins, they are going to score goals here. So 3.5 goals in the match and a United victory is nice. Another group bet here I like is a more daring group bet. 3-0, 3-1, 3-2. I do think Ipswich can score here, because there'll be some confusion about new tactics. It's 5. 4-1. I quite like that. So a high-scoring game with a Man United win.
Of course, Man United to win, and again, the odds are not bad at all. 1.7, looking for the second away win of the season. And for Monday, we have Newcastle West Ham, still Julen Lopetegui in charge of West Ham, despite not being able to beat Everton in the last game. Away from home is 5 points and only 1 win, and Newcastle 3 consecutive wins in all competition, and it's not easy to beat Nottingham Forest and Arsenal in the last 2 games.
No, and I think that the home form has been pretty decent. It's not been particularly thrilling. They're averaging a goal a game, and it's 3 wins in 5. But they're narrow victories. 1-0 against Southampton. Their last game was 1-0 over Arsenal. Look, better opponent, but still narrow. The draw against Man City. Even the loss against Brighton was a narrow scoreline. It's narrow margins right now for Newcastle. They're not like thrashing teams as they were at the start of last season, but they are nudging their way to victory. The balance of the midfield hasn't quite worked yet with Tonali, Joelinton and Bruno Guimaraes. I think it'll get there, but I think now is the time to get there. And offensively, I think Callum Wilson is coming back into the squad for this one. That gives them, if fit enough, the 𝗍𝗍𝗏-Wilson rotation, which is really important to what Eddie Howe wants to do. That might well see some late goals, add to the goals tally moving forward. And defensively, they're still missing Sven Botman. They still haven't quite got that balance right, but maybe Lloyd Kelly is just, coming to the fore now after a bit of a rough start since his move from Bournemouth. In terms of West Ham, I think expectation on Lopetegui wasn't amazingly high. No one thought he would come in and change this David Moyes team to a Pep Guardiola team, right? No one thought that was going to happen. But I got to tell you, I didn't think it would get worse. And boy, has it got worse. There is not one thing Lopetegui has brought to West Ham to make them better. Not one thing. They've defensively got worse. The midfield balance is absolutely atrocious. Guido Rodriguez starting every single game. There's talk that he wants to go back to Betis in January. If it was up to me, I'd cancel his contract and send him now. Again, I don't know if he's a good player or not, but I know the player I've seen shouldn't be anywhere near a Premier League squad. Wouldn't get a game for Ipswich, never mind a team who have spent £100 million and imagine themselves in the top half and challenging for Europe. That's where they should be on the wage bill. And Lucas Paqueta, truly abysmal season he has had. If you see Rodriguez and Paqueta in this team in any way, turn it off. It's over already, because you're playing with 9 men away at Newcastle. You've not got a chance. And Edson Alvarez should come back in from suspension for this game. Sent off twice for 2 bookable offences this season for the same thing. like just, one in the cup and one in the league. It's been truly atrocious from West Ham in every way. Nicholas Füllkrug remains injured. Probably the worst signing anyone made in the summer before the injury issues. And in fact, forgive me, Edson Alvarez, it was his second one, and they're out of the cup, so he'll be suspended for this game. So it's going to be Souček, Rodriguez, and Paqueta. Give me a break. That is not a midfield that makes any sense. So Füllkrug is out. Alvarez is out. Kudus remains suspended. They're conceding lots of goals. They can't score. 𝐿𝐿 is still up front. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. There is nothing that 𝗀𝗲𝗿𝗀𝗍𝗍 has done to still be in this job. And I think this window, as Man United did, was the time to sack him. That was the moment to say, look, we got this wrong. This is not a good fit. And West Ham didn't do it. Man United did. And so they're going to struggle. They'll lose this. I think they'll lose quite heavily, frankly. And they've got Arsenal, I think, next week. That's another big loss on the horizon. Then where are you? Sacking the manager with the Christmas period coming up. So Newcastle win here, even though the form guide suggests low. You could pick win to 0 at 2.88. That covers the kind of low scoring metrics. But even though the form suggests Newcastle haven't been scoring many, this is where they do. West Ham have conceded so many terrible goals this season away from home. Minus 1.5 is 2.38, and 3-0, 3-1, 3-2 brings you at 5. But I'd be looking at handicap scores here. Don't bet on West Ham to score. Bet on a comfortable Newcastle win. 𝗀𝗲𝗍𝗍, out.
𝗀𝗲𝗍𝗍, I told you at the beginning of the season. Well, Newcastle at home, 5 goals scored, 3 conceded, as you were saying. So not a lot of goals. This is the last game of this match day. Number 12. Remember, guys, that you can also post your own tips on Oddspedia and even participate in our competitions, especially the Premier League, of course, very interesting for those who are big fans of the Premier League. And Tom, let's listen to your safe bet.
Safe bet is Liverpool to win. I think they're extremely likely to pick up a comfortable victory. And so take Liverpool, take them comfortably. You get that for about 1.29. Not amazing, but it's safe.
Yeah, it's safe. And the ACCA?
3-team ACCA this week. I keep getting 2 of 3. It's annoying me greatly, but I fancy Chelsea to win at Leicester. I think Fulham are going to win over Wolverhampton Wanderers at home. And Liverpool at Southampton feels like a gimme. Easy treble this week.
Well, good luck to everyone. Thank you, Tom. See you next week. Bye-bye.